Today I want to talk about this story out of the CBC. You know, there's another story I wanted to bring up, but the whole I don't have the whole story pulled up. This is kind of just the thing, but I wanted to talk about what's happened to the Canadian legal system in that so there's this 22-year-old girl that was killed by a convicted murderer out on day parole. Now, the whole thing is that why is this going on? Like this guy was a killer who I think anybody in the right mind who would have to bet on if this guy was released, you know, going out and doing it again. And not only that, the reason that they let him out is because he said he needed to get, you know, his rocks off, basically. And like, why would we let someone like that out? Like, why? You're just asking for someone to get killed, and obviously that's what happened. And this kind of stuff keeps going on. And the other story I wanted to bring up here is this is from Sweden, but Canada is kind of on the road to becoming the next Sweden, given how high our immigration levels are. But anyway, Sweden sentences 19-year-old man to 75 hours community service for sex crime against 13-year-old girl. Now, I won't get into the details of what he did, but he basically raped the girl in pretty much the worst way you can rape someone, aside from like beating and like torturing them. And like I say, 75 hours community service, and this is where we're at in the West. And I know people say this is in Canada, it won't happen here. Um, yeah, it will happen here. Like I say, this kind of stuff happens. It's slowly but surely. I mean, Sweden just didn't start doing this overnight. It took a good decade at least, and now and it's very simple. If you speak out against it, it's because you're a racist, and it's because, at least in this crime, this is overwhelmingly, you know, African and Middle Eastern men doing this kind of stuff. And what example are we setting? Like, the thing that bothers me so much is that you have the left wanting to ban guns because it's going to improve public safety, even though every police chief says it won't. Let's just assume that it will. But yet you let this kind of stuff off the hook. You let murderers out of prison so they can go kill someone, and it wasn't even a legit reason to let him out. He wanted to go get his rocks off. Like that's why you let someone out. Like this is just absolutely insane. I'm kind of I don't even really know what to say. That this kind of stuff's getting so scary. I mean, in Canada we have, like I say, we have the government trying to license media outlets. We have free speech slowly but surely being taken away, and like I say, this kind of stuff happens slowly but surely. And before you know it, you try and talk to the average person about this kind of stuff, and they think you're crazy. And the reason why is simple is that they're too stupid to recognize this slowly but surely, you know, our rights being taken away. Someone with a brain and someone who has the ability to think critically will look at any little, you know, attack on free speech, any little time the government, even if it's just for the littlest thing, that just opens up the door, because if they can convince people to go along with it, then they convince people to go along with it a little further and a little further and a little further. And that's how they do it. You know, I was reading the other day about a story of one of the top Nazi guys that, you know, he basically ran one of the gas chambers, and they don't just start you out running the gas chambers. I mean, how they did it is that they'd slowly but surely work your way up the line. You know, off the start, he started outside the building. You know, just as a basic, you know, everyday guard, and then he started. You know, he's just inside, and then he's just outside the door, and then he's in there, but he's in there with the guy that, you know, is doing it, but he's not. He's just watching. And then, you know, maybe he tries it every now and then it's, you know, half the time, and then it's three-quarters of the time, and then it's all the time. And that's how this kind of stuff happens. And I don't mean to compare it to something like that. I know it's a very horrid thing, but if we keep going down the path we're going down, a lot more people are going to die than the amount of people killed by the Nazis. And like I say, I don't want to downplay anything that they did. It was absolutely terrible, but things are going to get really bad if we don't start speaking up against this kind of stuff. And like I said, the justice system in Canada is just broken. That in Europe you can get thrown in jail. I mean, Canada, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I know you can get fined in Canada, but again, I don't know exactly what the laws are. But I know Bill C-16 basically wanted to criminalize hate speech, and you know, you can get thrown in jail for or at the very least hit with a pretty good fine for misgendering someone, ooh, the horrors of misgendering someone. But if you kill someone, you get a life sentence, we're gonna let you out. It makes no sense. Like, what if you polled people? Do you actually think that the majority of people would want to let someone out of prison who the experts clearly say, and clearly, I mean, if you don't think that, you're clearly pretty dumb, if you ask me. That would you actually want to let someone out of prison who clearly is going to reoffend, who overwhelmingly is going to reoffend? Like, no. I mean, I think that there's a lot of people in prison that shouldn't be in prison, namely the non-violent drug offenders. But like, if anyone deserves to be in prison, it's these violent people, and they need to be reformed. And like stuff like this, like, why aren't these people being thrown in prison? And the other last thing I wanted to point out too is that in this case specifically, going light against I know it's not just the Muslims and the African people and the African guys that are doing this kind of stuff. I understand that, but the rates would still be much, much, much lower if immigration hadn't been going at the rate it was going. And the thing I wanted to point out is that we seem to think I mean, it's mainly the people on the left, but a lot of people in the middle too, and even a lot of conservatives now. They seem to think that somehow giving in and going light and, being you know, going very light and giving in and being a pushover is somehow going to help the relationship between Sweden and all these immigrants and Canada and all these immigrants, and it really doesn't. It doesn't. All it does is it shows them that, hey, we got away with this much. Let's see how much more we can get away with. And in other words, they just view it as a sign of weakness, and that just means they're going to push that much harder. They're going to push their ideology that much harder on us, and they're going to keep doing the same stuff. So, um, I wanted to make this video because, number one, Canada, the justice system's already broken and it's already bad, and I wanted to add that in this story because I think this is where Canada's going. So anyway, if you liked the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. And like I always mention now, I do have a PayPal link you can go to and donate to me. Also, if you want, I'd really appreciate that. And last things last, make sure you stay tuned for more videos.